Hi, my name is Susan Stotterell, and I'm going to be your host for Beyond the Books, The Language of Success, an interdisciplinary podcast on child and adult literacy. Thank you for joining us. Today's episode concerns social media and the art of learning. I am your host, Susan Stotterell. Intersecting literacies taught me the ability to concentrate on a subject for hours at a time. Music and reading made me a more literate writer and thinker. As a child, I always had a much higher literacy level than my physical age. Three intersecting aspects of my life contributed to this. At 4 years old, I began taking piano lessons from my mother, then later from two different teachers. With piano, you must try to reproduce what you have heard and do scales and passages over and over until you master them. That taught me the method of learning applied to many other subjects. You are also using separate parts of your brain, learning to hear what you are doing is correct, and learning nomenclature that involves lines and spaces, orally and spatially. You write in the fingerings for a short section and practice it over and over until it is mastered. Then you move on to the next four measures. Each learned passage eventually adds up to the technique to play the whole piece flawlessly. Next is using the technique to perform the piece with passion and emotional understanding. I lived mostly in an adult world, so I probably heard words beyond what kids my age would. I also began working alone in my grandfather's grocery store for hours at a time, with few customers coming in. Alone in that store, while my convalescing grandfather rested, I could listen to the sports, weather, and news and farm news. The radio was on the top shelf, so I could not reach it. Farm news is pretty boring for a young girly girl of 7 years old. Or I could read the Denver Post and the adult mysteries and westerns that a friend gave my grandfather. I loved storytelling, but I had already memorized my tall book of fairy tales. I could teach myself to read adult books or die of boredom. That taught me patience and tolerance, critical thinking, and a lot of other things. Probably a lot which I shouldn't have learned at that age. I don't have to ask myself why kids and adults have trouble concentrating when social media presents the world in 15-second segments that come possibly 1 second apart from the next. Instagram posts can only have 2,200 characters, and what used to be Twitter, 288 characters. Many school districts across the country are suing the major social media companies to investigate how the high use of social media, particularly among adolescents, an age where essential brain development occurs, is causing serious mental health issues that teachers must now take care of during school hours rather than teaching. Added to that, the U.S. Surgeon General has now issued warnings that there needs to be significant research on how social media affects children. Up to 95% of youth ages 13 to 17 report using a social media platform, with more than a third saying they use social media almost constantly. 40% of 8 to 12-year-olds use social media, whereas the minimum age legislated by the companies is 13. Social media can enrich a person's life to a certain extent, but like anything else, it shouldn't be one's whole life.